So I wanted to see how much damage difference there is between single button assistant and assisted highlight, which is very close to normal rotation. Basically, single button assistant is the mechanic you can use where you keep pressing one button and it will use your rotation automatically, and assisted highlight just highlights the keys that you should be using, like which button you should be using next. So what I did was I did a 3-minute DPS test, twice with the single button assistant, twice with the assisted highlight. 3 minutes on 5 mobs, standing still, just doing the rotation. Of course, with the single button assistant, I just kept pressing 1 for 3 minutes, but with this assisted highlight, I actually had to do the rotation, and which required my eyes to be down on the key bindings all the time to see, what I had to press. So one of them, I could be scrolling TikTok, which is the single button assistant, while doing it, and the other one, I had to actually actively look down on my key bindings to see the damage difference. So after doing this for 12 minutes, basically 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, then I had the result. What was the difference playing a Retribution Paladin assisted highlight versus single button assistant? So the verdict that I came up with after doing all this testing is actually on this image here you will see here. So the SBA, the single button baseline average, was about 14 million damage in total, but a 79k DPS in average. So those two runs gave an average of 14 million damage, but a 79k DPS. That was with pressing one button all the time without having to press other buttons. I would technically be able to look around the game all the time, be able to, more focus on mechanics and stuff like that. But then when I tried to use the assisted highlight, where I actually had to follow the rotation, which was highlighting on my screen, this was the numbers I got instead. So I got almost 17 million damage in total and 94k DPS in average. As you can see below, we had the first run on the single button assistant, and the second one, the first one I had 82k DPS, then 75k DPS. Again, this is like the, after like the 3 minutes. The moment I hit 3 minutes, this was the number I had as a DPS there. And the same one with the second run. And then we had assisted highlight. After 3 minutes, I had a 92k DPS and 95k DPS. So what does this mean? Assisted highlight delivers 2.7 million more damage and 15k more DPS on average than that is straight 19.14% performance boost when moving away from single button setup to reacting to active highlights. So basically, when you're using assisted highlight. So what does this mean? This basically means when you're using the single button assistant, standing still, doing nothing else, then it will technically deal 90% damage less. Of course, this was a 3-minute test run. Some people claim that you have to do 5 and 10 minutes to actually see real numbers and blah blah. But just standing still, the single button assistant actually deals 19% lower damage than the assisted highlight. Remember, this was a fight scenario where I was standing still against dummies all the time. If this was in a real scenario where you had fire on the ground, you had mobs attacking you maybe, you had to avoid and stuff like that, spamming the single button assistant would still do the normal rotation. It will still do the best it can for executing the right rotation. But the assisted highlight all depends on you, because you have to look down on the keys and actually see if you press the right buttons. And if, of course, you're not an experienced user or for the spec or class, then you might be clicking the wrong spells and so on, and you might, dip down below the SBA, the single button assistant. So we really have to think about, don't just think, oh, okay, so single button assistant deals 19% less damage on a Retribution Paladin. Remember, this is just for Retribution Paladin with a dungeon spec against 5 dummies. Remember that. But the single button assistant is going to execute the rotation no matter what, while you can dodge fire, help your teammates, giving them buffs and everything else, but the assisted highlight require your attention 100% because you need to press the right buttons when looking at them. Of course, the more you play with the assisted highlight, the better you get. You start understanding rotation, it will teach you slowly how to play it, and then eventually, maybe after a few weeks of practice, you don't even have to look at your key buttons anymore. You just kind of know what you need to do, and you will become better. But again, this is just a scenario. As a Retribution Paladin, which is very reliable on fast casting, using spells very quickly after each other, we can see that the difference between standing still using these two mechanics is a 19% difference. So, I still find this quite interesting. I wanted to test this and see the performance, and I was like, why not record it and show you guys it, since, why not? So let me know in the comments, was this relevant for you? Would you like to see other classes, other specs, where we test this? We could technically go through all plus 30 specs, do the comparison, and in the end, we will have one big list where we can see all the comparison between them. But again, remember, this was a 3-minute test on twice single button, twice assisted highlight to see the result that we got out here. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, but please let me know, is there any other spec class you would like to see? What the difference is between single button assistant and assisted highlight.